Yep. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quality Sewing and Vacuum, our live, so fun for the month of August. If you are new here, we do live shows in person in our 11 stores every month. We would love for you to come and join us. If you would like to know the dates and times of those, go ahead and jump online to qualitysewing.com where you can learn about all the dates and times of those events. Girls, ladies, what are your favorite things of our live presentations?
Oh, just talking with customers and
I love the show and tell myself.
Oh, yes.
That's one of my favorite parts.
Yes, mine too. There's food, there's friends, there's camaraderie, but most importantly, there's tons of education and the latest and greatest new products out on the market. So anyways, welcome for joining us today. We are going to hand out some prizes today, so don't forget to leave a comment down below. Tell us where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, we're going to pop it right up on the screen, and these gals are going to answer it for you, Iola and Gail. They've got some really amazing products. You can see behind me, they are just fantastic and beautiful. Can't wait for you to get some amazing education today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Iola and Gail. Thank you.
Thank you.
So actually, we were just laughing, and one of the jokes that I've been telling that you guys may want to have in your little hopper for social events coming up this fall is one of the things I was recently diagnosed with is called helium hand. And that's where you sit around with a bunch of consultants like we were, and I had said I'd do the north end, and Andrea said, well, who'd like to do the south? And the next thing I knew, my right hand was going up, and the helium in it just took over, and so all of a sudden I found myself getting to do all the stores except for Pasco, which Gail is going to nicely do for me since I've been driving most of the last 4 weeks.
Feels like 4 months.
It feels like 4 months at moments, but anyway, it's been a super fun month getting to know everybody and sharing the things that I learned with the projects I did on my summer vacation. So with that being said, the first thing I want to talk about is collaging, and actually we can go with the book. So basically Emily Taylor has done this book called Collage Quilter, which is the essentials of successful collaging. And I never thought I would be a big collager by any sort of the imagination, but when I go, my hairdresser is very creative, and when I was there getting my hair cut, she popped up this photo on her phone, and I went, oh, I love that. So I said, I wish I could do that. And like anybody that's a good enabler, she said, of course you can. And I said, okay. And so anyway, I bought the pattern. The thing I didn't take into account when I bought it was when it came, it was on a cloth, and it is the size of my dining room table, and my dining room table is not small. So anyway, Carol, the hairdresser, nicely said she'd come over and help me do this. I wouldn't have bought it if she hadn't. But anyway, this was my jumping off point in learning about collaging, and I bought Emily's book, Collage Quilter, before I knew I was going to be presenting on it. And pretty much from there, her basic principles are to take a picture, turn it to black and white, which of course you can do with your phone. I mean, it's really easy to take a photo of just about anything and then convert it to black and white. And actually on the back of her book, you can see where she did that. Actually, I thought this had the black and white piece, but it didn't. But you will see if we flip up to behind me, we have Penny the parrot, and Penny is a sample that's out of her book. So anyway, as I started on this, one of the things I took away is that you basically take about 6 of those colors that then are black and white, and basically do a pile of fabrics of 1 through 6 as they meet those tones. So what I did, so to illustrate that, I have my handy dandy turtle, who is upside down. But anyway, so here's the turtle.
Here, let me hold the turtle for you.
And so hopefully what you can see is picking 3 light fabrics in the blues, 3 medium fabrics in the middle, 3 darker fabrics in the bottom with the tones. All I did was they were steam-a-seam pieces, cut them up in nice big chunks, and then you're good to go as far as just laying them out. So actually, if I set this down really quick, you can see how big those pieces are, which is really fun, and it goes quickly. And then usually the next question people ask me is, where did I get the pattern? And the answer is a coloring book. So here you can see that, and I'm going to keep you busy on those cameras, but anyway, here's just a sketch out of the turtle, and from there, this that looks like masking tape, when I flip it over, what you will see, so that we can stay with the camera, is that's just the yellow between the various plates of his shell, or her shell. But anyway, the other thing I want you to see and appreciate with this is on Emily's stuff, you'll notice it's not a lot of small pieces. So like this batik is plenty interesting all on its own, same with this flipper here. So these are all nice big pieces of fabric, and it just makes it really fun because one, you get done in a reasonable amount of time, and I equate it very much that once you've figured out your photo and the black and white tones, that then it's just like filling in a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, it's just very easy, and it's actually something I think I'm going to do a party when it starts getting rainy around here and have a bunch of us work on some projects together and see how that goes. But anyway, so that's the turtle. I should also point out, just in case it turned out to be fresh water instead of salt, we did add the little bit of red because I know some turtles have red on their neck, and you can never go wrong with a little bit of K flour to go ahead and add an accent. But anyway, so that's the turtle. So once I'd done that, and just to further expand on the idea, we'll look at Mr. Pig. And one of the jokes I have is, if I can sew, pigs can fly. And so as far as this guy goes, it's the exact same idea of where you're going to just take an outline from a photo, from anything, and you're just going to basically figure out where what shapes are going to go. But the most important thing I want you to take from seeing this, other than the pigs are cute, is that on the wings, each of the feathers are actually just a single fabric. It's not where you've gone and done multiples and made it much more complex. So anyway, so that was the fun of that. And then I decided I better go to Pinterest and kind of show you guys some of the techniques as far as how I did this. So when I went to Pinterest, I found this picture of this large quilt. And I thought, well, that looks very doable. And one of the things I realized is, in my very short time of sewing and doing this stuff, that I have mastered fabric collecting. So my stash was quite good, and shockingly, I had all the fabrics needed without having to go to the store. So here again, and there's a loose piece that didn't get any steam-a-seam on it. We'll put it down there. But here, just like the turtle, what I did was I went from light to dark, and I used a few more where I used about 3 fabrics there. I probably did closer to 5 as I built that from top to bottom. But then I thought it'd be really fun, and people had talked about organza before. I went ahead and put this piece of organza over, and it does 2 things. One, it sort of mutes and blends all the colors, but which actually I can illustrate well by doing that. I think that shows up for you guys so you can see it, the difference between, but it also just sort of secures. So what I'm going to do, similar to this photo, is I will, after today, go and actually quilt down the organza, and then I'm going to put my poppies and these purple flowers, or at least I made them purple, up on the top. So I will show you those, and I'll show you a little bit of the tools and techniques. So here is the poppies. And right now I just have them on a non-stick applique sheet. But one of the things that Emily recommends is a good pair of tweezers. And these tweezers are one of my favorite things these days. And they've replaced my former favorite tweezers that were by one of our machine manufacturing companies. I won't say who, but anyway, these are less expensive and do a great job. The things I like about them, one is that you've got about a 1/2 inch here of surface, so if I want to smooth down a petal in this particular case, or make sure something has contact there, I've got that 1/2 inch. They also have a very sharp point, so that if I'm trying to pick something out, or I'm weeding vinyl for something I've done with my scan and cut, that I can go ahead and take advantage of that. And then last but not least, probably the most critical thing, is that when you close them, that the entire length of it is closed, which means that when I go to pick up a piece, or I have something that I need to lift or tear away, that I have the whole 1/2 inch length to do that with. So I've been picking on this poor little petal for a while now, and I jokingly say I can always do the blizzard test. It's got the DQ stick to my finger when it's upside down. But anyway, with this, I can keep moving around. But the other tool that I have found to be vital and really helpful is this little mini iron. And it's great for two reasons. One, just as this petal has been picked up and put down in more presentations than I can currently count, it's a small surface, so if I wanted, I could heat all these pieces together. Sorry about that, the light board. I could do that as far as that goes, but there are times that you just want to do even a little tack, and you can use the point. So going back to the horse picture just really quickly, if you remember, I said this thing is the size of my dining room table. So when I was reaching over to work on something in the middle, because that sticky's about like a Post-it note, I would bump some of these pieces of fabric, and they would shift even just a little bit, and it would make me crazy. So what I did with those, and I can do here with this flower, is I can go ahead and take the point and tack it maybe at the top, the middle, and the bottom, and then it won't shift when I brush it with my finger, where here I don't have it stuck down, so you can see where it would just shift. And yet it's not so much that if I need to move this flower over here or someplace else, that I couldn't peel it up and make it work. So anyway, so that was one of the cool things about that, and I loved it.
Hey, Iola.
Yes.
So when you're doing that tacking or ironing or something with that clover, are you using the cutting mat part of your thing?
No, actually, I'm glad you asked. So one of the things that I don't think Caterpillar talks enough about is they have a tempered glass sheet, and what that allows me to do, I'm just going to move these for a second and hand you, this is their self-healing cutting mat, which is awesome for when I go to trace a design and stuff, and we'll look at Penny the Parrot in a second. But I also can move over this tempered glass, and actually I can even do my coloring there, but anyway, and it has 4 light settings. I will also share with you the coolest part of this Caterpillar Glow is the fact that it's battery operated, and I can get almost 4 hours on the high setting. And where that was applicable is when you see all the different things that were sewn this month. While I had help with some, I had the wonderful opportunity to take my sewing equipment with me camping. something I never ever thought I would do. But anyway, having this, one of the things I would do is do my tracing or any of my crafting. I even used, this was where I'd go ahead and stick on my steam-a-seam. So I would just actually have these guys, and actually if it was on, I also brought my little iron so that I could just iron on things, not that it matters, but I could do that, and I could do small things here, and there was no danger of hurting the light underneath. So that was a really cool thing, and something that, like I said, I don't think we highlight enough. That's an add-on to this Caterpillar Glow, but that's kind of that. So like, and one last thing, so as I'm doing this and going back to this organza, one of the things I want you to know is organza comes, I have this where that button is, right where I'm going to brush against it. But anyway, with the organza comes in two separate flavors. One is silk and the other is synthetic. And so again, one of the cool things of this little iron is if I'm ironing these poppies on, I can basically make that heat exactly where I want, and I don't have to take my bigger iron and worry about melting any of the organza. So that was kind of cool, but I've ended up with this setting, and I'm actually going to mention, just because it was part of my going camping, was we will talk about the Brittany vest at the end, but there's a lot of quilting in that, and so I had a bunch of half square triangles, and one of the things I needed to do was square them up and cut them to make sure that all my points matched. And it was virtually impossible to do that on my mat at home, because this darker fabric went ahead and just sort of blended with the mat, where to have the light behind it I could really see. And then if I had just cut it, I could then flip it over. Well, actually I split this way, which is really kind of a cool thing to do. And I took my cutting mat, so here I am, and let's not take off the bookshelf, but anyway, here I am. I go ahead and I make my square, I make my cuts to get it to where I want, and then I can take it right over here to the glass and go ahead and open that seam. So really a useful tool and something that is a great part of my arsenal these days. So with that, why don't I hand you Mr. Tempered Glass,
Sounds good.
so that he can just sit. And we'll up, and I will put this the right direction. So anyway, so next I just want to show you, I went on Pinterest again, and this actually was a picture that is probably, oh man, I'm going to fight that all day. So helpful to have it battery powered rather than being able to unplug it. But anyway, I found this picture. It was probably a 1x2, and it's just amazing what all these cameras do to crisp this up. But in the same way that Emily talks about things, and I've been hopefully illustrating, she uses bigger fabrics so that here you can just see how you quilt and so on through that. And then actually, before we get to the dragonfly, I forgot to show you Penny the parrot right out of her book. So let's go back and we'll take a quick look at Penny, which was after I did those poppies.
It's right there on the...
And so here is Penny. I will let you hold that guy. So in her book, you get about 8 designs of teacups and different things, and Penny and Polly Parrot, and it has a QR code so you can download it digitally. I went to FedEx office and paid a couple of bucks to have them print it full size. So if we look at the parrot behind, you will see indeed that is Penny the parrot. So when I got Penny I got this big, but you can see all that grayscale that we were talking about. So this is part of, and even when we get up towards the beak, hopefully you can see it's got a couple of shades of dark in there that you're gonna
highlights.
fit. But yeah, highlights, that's the word I'm looking for. After this month, I'm losing my words, but here again, now is where I want to turn this on. But then, of course, I can take my parchment paper, put it over, and I can go ahead and just trace it, and then stick all my fabrics, and end up with penny, as I did here. So, and then just as far as the rest of the design, Emily has an illustration of her doing penny and Polly a different way. But similar ideas, but then I just went to my scrap fabrics and found a bunch of cave flowers that I thought were really pretty. And then this was some fabric that almost looks like a panel that just fussy cut it out and then placed it around and maneuvered it until I was happy. So anyway, that would be penny.
All right, back to your...
So back to my little dragonfly. So, you know, I'm always somebody who wants to think a little bit outside the box and figure out different ways. And one of the thoughts I had as I did this was, gee, we brought in these Mylar designs, and one of them is the frog Mylar and applique pattern, and if you can see on here or zoom in, here is a cute little dragonfly. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to go ahead and take advantage with the Mylar of having translucent wings? So what I did was I just stitched out one of those as a sample, so you can see it would really work pretty well. And my point being that you don't just have to collage with fabric. You really can put embroidery in as part of the accent pieces and such. So anyway, I thought that was just a really fun thing to do, and this Mylar is just so much fun to work with. So I will show you some of that as in terms of what we brought in. So on the Mylar, we brought in actually 3 packages, and we'll talk about the different ones. Fab Flowers, Frogs and Mylar Applique, and Mylar in the Tropics.
Before you get too far, it looks like we had somebody asking, and they may have come in late, what you're using for a fusible for all your collaging.
Steam-a-seam. Steam-a-seam Light 2.
Wonderful.
So,
Paperback fusible web, yep.
Yep. So that's awesome, and like I said, I fused that one side, and then either in the case of the poppies, you know, trace and cut out my shape, or just with the other random fabrics, you know, I put them down and, like I said, treat them like they're Post-it notes and move them around until I have a happy place for them. But anyway, all of these came with really fun designs, many of which I don't think look super exciting as we look at the back, but in person they're pretty spectacular. So first, let's talk about, with the frogs, this process by which you do use the Mylar, because people have been asking, and one of the things, this company is called Purely Gates, not Pearly Gates. We're not sending anybody to the Pearly Gates, but here is Mr. Frog, and you can see in his body that he has the Mylar there, and actually on the word for the little cattails. Thank you.
Can you just shift the frog back and forth a little bit? Maybe we can catch that on the camera a little better.
There we go. So hopefully you guys can see that he's really
kind of shimmery.
Yeah. and the same with the cattails.
Yeah.
Just makes it really fun. But what you need to know if you're going to do it with other designs than these, and this is where these guys have done a great job designing, is here are your step-by-step instructions. And what it's showing here is, in this case I had blue fabric that looked like water to me, so I skipped those 2 steps. And this design is not the exact right frog, but it gets the point across. But this green dot says, after you have stitched this step, which is the back of the frog and down here on his toes, I want you to put down the piece of Mylar. And then the red dot says, when you're done stitching over the Mylar, I want you to peel it off. And again, that's where these tweezers paid huge dividends in terms of, as I was peeling off this Mylar, they made that process very easy. But the reason we're doing it that way, or that they've designed it that way, is because if you have stitches like these here that are very dense, or in these leaves here, those satin stitches, even if we left the Mylar down, you wouldn't be able to see the Mylar come through. So what they've done is done that background green to make sure it's solid enough that you're not seeing the fabric below, but then they're using some more open stitches over top of the Mylar to really let you see those effects. And we'll look at some other samples. But anyway, I thought that was super cool, and then you just finish out your stitch out. So that's Mr. Frog. And then we also had, actually I'll do the fish and then we'll look at the, well actually, yeah, and then we'll look. So anyway, so here on, this was my favorite, Mylar in the Tropics. I got all excited. And this actually I did the least with because it was my favorite, and I decided I should start where I was the least excited initially. But anyway, here you can see you've got a seahorse, a turtle, a pelican, and like anything, if there is a way to find the giant project that's going to consume all my time, I'm the person that'll do it. And so I found this design, see if I can get it the right side up. This is super cool, where this is a quilt that they have, and if you go to the Purely Gates website and you scroll down within Mylar in the Tropics, you will see this in better detail. But this is just a really neat quilt, and what they've done is obviously stitched out each of the main designs, but the corners, you'll notice on the design pack, you get the tropical flowers, but then down here you've got the quilting motifs. And so each one of these white squares, you might not be able to see it on camera, but they are just a stitch out of those motifs. So you can basically use a very pretty variegated thread and make something that looks really, really cool. So this is something I'm definitely gonna take time to do in the future, but just not something that I had time to do this summer. So that's that guy. And now I'll show you the fish, and then we'll move on to the flowers. So this is one of the fish, and hopefully you guys can really see, you know, how much fun it is in terms of the Mylar. Like, the bubbles are really sparkly. If I shift it around like so, hopefully that gives you a little bit of the, yeah, I can sort of see it, the texture. But anyway, he's swimming. I get a little desperate here. But anyway, you can see the detail with which they did Mylar in background and flowers plain, same with here. But again, if I'd had the Mylar on all the time under these stitches here or here, you wouldn't have been able to see it because those satin stitches are just so dense. But anyway, the other thing I want to point out, and I purposely left this one as a hand around in person, is that you have pucker around this design. And the reason we have pucker is because I chose to use power mesh, thinking that it was a good sturdy stabilizer and that one sheet of it would be enough. And what I discovered was that wasn't the case. And so one of the things I want to share that I learned from going to a Floriani seminar is that they use a unit of measure where if you take a 4-inch square, they say that that will support 10,000 stitches. And then, so logically, if I take a second sheet and put it right over, it's going to make those strands sturdier and it will support 20,000. But this is a really cool trick. If you shift and put that sheet over at a 45-degree angle, you've actually now increased the number of fibers that are going to hold it steady. So you increase that to 30,000 stitches. So something definitely to know and take advantage of as you're doing different projects.
And how do I know what stabilizer to use on what?
Perfect question. So one of the things that we brought in, and I found it very handy as a reference, is this embroiderer's compass. Now this is currently a dime product, but dime was just recently bought out by OESD, so I am sure at some point they are going to rebrand it. But right now what I would say is when you look things up, the cool part of this is on both sides it has all the different fabrics, and so you see that, but it also makes recommendations about the stabilizer, the needle, and then any additional comments. So one of the things that I was kind of excited by, well, actually, somebody taught me this lesson, which I think in this internet age is really a useful tool, and that is, if you want to know whether somebody knows something, ask a question you know the answer to. And so one of the things I did was one of my favorite how do I things that I attended was on embroidering on a terry cloth towel. So here I just have dialed in terry cloth, and sure enough what it told me was that I wanted to use a sticky stabilizer to hold my terry cloth, and it indeed also told me, and that was washable, and that I needed a topper on top so that the embroidery didn't sink into those fibers and get lost. So I thought that was awesome, and I did that with a couple of different things, but it also refers to what needle you need as far as the fabrics go. So that's one of the other lessons I've learned over the last couple of years, is the importance of matching the right needle to the right fabric to make things go to, get your optimal result. So anyway, so that, and actually just to highlight some of the things on this, it's got sweatshirts, caps, denim, socks, metallic thread embroidery, it even on the other side, satin, polar fleece, nylons, and lycra spandex, and leather, both brittle and old and thin, and thick and spongy leather, and sheer fabrics, vinyl. So it kind of covers the gamut as far as that goes. And like I said, each time it will cite its recommendation on stabilizer, needle, and then any comments about what to do.
Talk about the flowers and
yeah. And then for the flowers, like I said, didn't think they looked very exciting in these pictures, but over here, once they were stitched out, well actually, and I have to share, so I had friends that all said, okay, it looks like you've got a lot of sewing to do. I'd be happy to jump in and share. And so I said, okay, pick one of the patterns, and everybody picked the flowers. And I went, okay, not my most exciting, but sure enough, and they're like, no, Iola, you don't get it. You're going to want to put these on a t-shirt. You're going to want to embellish a bag with them. You're going to want to put them on a denim jacket. And I'm like, okay. But that's where, now that I have gone ahead and stitched them out, and hopefully you can see some of the shimmer. I mean, in person, they are just awesome. And I really like them, and I now get it that I might put this on my jean jacket, and there I can use my embroiderer's compass to guide me on what stabilizer and needle.
Wonderful.
So anyway, so that's those guys.
All right, so you got the designs, you got the Mylar, and those tweezers,
And my little iron.
your little iron, yep, all good to go for Mylar.
Yep.
All right, so you can shine. So I have a quick winner, right? So we have a prize winner, and Mickey Singer, you are the now owner of a juicy watermelon pattern. And if you would like to send a message to
Andrea.
at qualitysewing.com and let us know how we can get this to you. We can pick it up at a store, or just give your contact info to Andrea. We can get that off to you. So congratulations, and we've got another one coming later on. So keep tuned in.
Perfect. All right. So the next thing I want to share with you is a book that I thought that was just amazing, called the Patchwork Braid Book, and it says that it has 13 quick and easy projects, but as it relates to that, we've got the Pack It Up pattern, and we of course have the braided templates. So I'll throw those there, so hopefully you can see them and what their numbers are on the list. But pretty much when you're working with these templates, so I will shift this now that you've kind of had a quick glance. I've got my blank piece of paper here. I came prepared today.
All right.
So one of the things I'm doing is making sure I put these templates on white. I will tell you right now, the reason they have my last name on them is because every time I dropped them at home, they blended so well with my carpet, it was embarrassing. So anyway, the book goes through everything from just how to construct a braid, which we will look at really quickly with this one. And this is where, this is using the mini template where I went ahead and I just cut to this exact size, and then I did a bunch of my cuts and I did both directions so that I would have a braid when I was done. And you can hopefully see it's a 1/4 inch seam, so when I hold this here, you'll see that I basically have that 1/2 inch showing up by my name, where on this side you can see all my 1/4 inch just fold overs. So then as far as building it, you build from the bottom up. So first I stitched here, then I stitched this guy on, then this one, and this one, and so on. And then you can either trim it thinner, which I did, and this is actually, and I got into having fun playing with these and actually auditioning them against different bags, different things, the top of a pocket, and so on. But this is all based on this being the widest for this little template. And one of the questions people ask over and over again is, do I need these rulers in order to do this? And the answer is no. But just like any woodworking tool, if you have the right tool, it just makes your life easier, quicker, faster. So anyway, so that's these guys. And I'll show you what the biggest one looks like. And we were joking around, so this is just the big guy.
Yeah. So we have a quick question. So the compass, the question is it brand specific, and it is not. So it's going to tell you a medium tearaway. It's going to tell you a cutaway or a topper. So it is not a specific brand. So any brand that you've got at home, any brand that we carry, it's going to be covered in here. So great question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so anyway, so this is the wider, larger template, and this is it at its maximum width. But just for grins and giggles, I want to point out, both of these actually came from the same
Jelly roll?
Jelly roll. Yes, we've got the jelly roll race coming. So anyway, it's just really fun that this has a lot of diversity in color, but anyway, so that's the braids, and I am going to show you the table of contents for this book because it's pretty cool and it just gives you an overview of the various projects that you can learn more from, and the cameras have been so good that you can pretty much get an idea, but it does everything from, you know, just a very simple table runner type things, but it talks to the idea of putting a stripe of fabric down in between the braids using different widths. One that's particularly interesting is down here. What you can probably see is if you have a panel, how nice it is to just finish it with sort of an L shape of the braid. Just a variety of different things. They do a whole sampler, show you how to make tulips out of it, just super designs. And then on the back here you can sort of see what happens and how different it looks if you add squares between the different things. So just a myriad of different looks. Another really fun one is where they went from this inch wide to half-inch wide fabric so that you could even make pockets and stuff. So that was really fun, and they end with a quilt that kind of highlights all the different ones, but I can't say enough nice things about the book, and it's one of those resources that I think I'll use quite a bit. I mean, what do you think, Gail? I mean, good as far as, you know, just some different
Absolutely.
ways of looking at things. And
all sorts of different projects in that book. It's great
So-
to go to give you some variety.
yeah, and just approach things in a different way. So one of the other things that we haven't talked about that we brought in, and I just have the box over here, but it's the denim book stand, and this is one of my new favorite things on my sewing deal. But one of the things that's cool, and actually not opening it, but if I'm working on a pattern, and in particular when I was doing the vest, I had all the cutting instructions on one sheet, and I thought, oh God, the last thing I want to do is mistakenly go for the wrong size. But this is a metal book stand, so obviously just like a cookbook or somebody who's knitting, you can have it. But what I discovered was, since I had my Caterpillar and I had my Caterpillar magnets, they are super strong. Well, they're so strong, in fact, that they can actually, well, they sound like a gunshot if I let them go. And I've used that to make sure everybody's awake after a break in person, but these can just literally hold the book itself. No surprise when it's one or two sheets. And then I even, so these are Caterpillar magnets, but you also can use the So Tight heavy duty ones. And so if you're following a pattern, you can actually take that magnet and just work your up and down on different lines to follow a pattern. So those are kind of a neat add-on, but I love this book stand. And the other fun thing somebody recommended to me is I've gotten a couple of really cute little needle minders, and so I haven't really had a place for multiples, and so now I actually put them on my corners as little decorations, and they hold post-it notes and other things related to my projects. So with that being said, that's this guy, and I am very happy to have added it to my arsenal.
Keeps your stuff up where you can see it and off
Yeah.
the cutting table.
You got it.
Don't cut it by mistake.
So, let's see. Oh, now we get to talk about one of my favorite things. So we brought in the stand and stow pattern. And unclip this guy. And so we've got a bunch of samples to show you. So it comes in small. This is actually going to be kind of fun because this way I can actually just put them out on the table. So there's where it stands. And same with this guy. Comes in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. And What's fun with this is, as you can see, they all stand, but they're made so that they just fold into nothing. So, and this is a super easy pattern, and this is the kind of project that you can get done easily in an afternoon or even do 2 in an evening. I mean, it's not hard, very easy to accomplish, but this is the largest, and as you can see, it's just not that big. So,
Looks great for groceries or...
Yep. So this small one,
Whatever.
I'm not somebody who's going to carry by hand, but I think this looks perfect as a little gift bag. So I can see me gifting a number of people. Somebody else suggested putting Insulbright in it and then putting some magnets up here and making it a little mini lunch bag. I thought that might be an interesting thing to try. But the quality, some of the qualities of this are that you have no raw edges, and like I said, very easy, but the construction, well actually I'll finish talking about the sizes. So that being the small, the medium is exactly the size of your paper bag at the grocery store. And nicely finished, and they have you do your contrasting strip on the inside. And then the large can hold a 9x13 casserole dish, so at the base. And I thought this was going to be way too big and that I wouldn't like it. If it was open or I had to store it like this, I probably would find it a pain. But because I can do that extra fold, it just feels hardly bigger than that medium size. And so I carry it with me. But as far as construction goes, so that you guys all understand, one of the things I've done is it uses Peltex, and it recommends Peltex 71F, which is a fusible on one side. But pretty much what I do is I like making these so much that I actually pre-cut my Peltex. So here, actually if I was on the largest, I have the front has 2 pieces of Peltex, 1, 2, and a seam in between. Basically, you're just making chambers to hold these pieces of Peltex, which gives it the ability to stand. Back is 3 and 4, sides are 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the base is the same thing. And hopefully you can see, that's what makes it so I can fold it there or this way and have all that ability to do stuff. But like I said,
do you actually sew through the Peltex?
Nope, I'm actually making little pockets that I'm then sliding them into. So for example, on the front and the back, I have my lining fabric and my outer fabric, and I don't have my border on up here, so I just slide in those pieces of Peltex, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to go around for all the sides. And then before I closed my seams out here, I put in the base 4. And so, like I said,
So
super
no
quick and
heavy
easy.
sewing machine necessary?
Nope.
Just,
Not at all.
yeah. Looks like you've got some nice different fabrics that you're using and different
yeah.
handles and...
So we did webbing on a lot of these just because I had it and I thought it matched really well. So that was that. The other thing to tell you about that I jokingly say in my infinite short sewing career of learning is that I thought most of the time if you were doing a construction joint that you would want to have a 1/2 inch of fabric to sew it together. And in this particular case, all the seams are 1/4 inch. So I was kind of curious because here this is directional fabric. So obviously at the base I wanted to join the two. And so I asked about it, and one of the sewing instructors at Quality made the point that I could change my stitch length from a 2.5 down to a 2 and just have a better, denser stitch, and that would be sufficient. The other cosmic moment I had was that I also could add an extra 1/4 inch to each side and have my 1/2 inch if that made me feel better, but not needed. But I went with the shorter stitch length on these. But as you were saying, one of the cool things is we've been carrying the splash fabric for a while now, and this is splash fabric in marigold, and still has the accent and just a really pretty fabric on the outside, but this is just nice that we can take it, and if anything gets gooey or stuff in there, we can wipe it down, clean it out, and so that's kind of fun. And then we did the Seattle skyline. Actually, I'll grab the dark one first. So this one I also did with splash fabric, and on this I opted to cover my inside seams with the splash fabric, so it really is closer to waterproof, and I feel comfortable really, you know, even putting some of my groceries and freezer type things where it might get moist, and I really will wipe it out.
So these are fun panels, so it looks like you could utilize all different kinds of fabrics. This one even has a little ring sewn into the handle, so you could clip your keys on there, not get them lost down inside your bag. So these look just very versatile and very fun.
Yeah, and one last thing related to this is this particular one with the ring. I borrowed this from one of our Bellevue customers who made this quite a while ago, and I mean, I have seen it and coveted it, and so it's been fun having it this month. But what I need people to know is that this has been in use for a couple of years and been through the washer and the dryer at least at a minimum a dozen times. So the Peltex holds up wonderfully. I mean, you know, if you were here in person, you'd get to feel just how it's nice, it's soft, but it absolutely has maintained its rigidity to stand, which is really a nice thing. And these both have cloth handles where, you know, it's just got some interfacing inside. So that is the stand and stow, and it has been very popular, and I think a lot of people are going to be getting them for Christmas.
Yeah, all right.
So hand that stuff off.
Yep. I can get it.
Cool. All right. So, last couple of things. We brought in this fabric mini wallet. And the only thing tricky that you need to know about it is that you need to follow the instructions. So you need to read. And sometimes I'm not a rocket scientist as far as that goes. So I made a couple of them. And the biggest thing was, this was the first I made, just trying contrasting fabrics. And it is one of those projects where when I say you need to read, it tells you to put right sides together or right and wrong side together, because then it's one of those foldy exercises to get it so that everything has a finished edge. And by the time I hit, this was my first one, and the things I wasn't crazy about that I modified between that and this one was I actually made this thinner, and all I had to do was move it down and take off about 1/2 an inch there. This holds cards quite a bit tighter than, so they won't fall out, and that was a concern for me. But anyway, when I got to my third, sure enough, I'd done a great job, but I had forgotten to read. I knew where I was going, and so I missed one of the steps, and so I ended up with a little bit of a raw edge, but hardly noticeable. But just, you know, all of these came out really quickly. I did them with some different zippers and different things, and the template, basically it's 5 1/4 long by 3 1/4 high, and I wanted to use some 5-inch charm packs. It's very easy if you want to do that to just make that 1/4 inch a little bit different, and I just took a 1/4 inch at the top too. But anyway, that's these guys. Super fun, super cool.
They look like great little gifts.
Yep.
Quick and easy.
Gift card, if not a wallet.
Yeah.
So that's those. And then really quickly, we brought in, Kimberbell started doing these punch needle embroidery kits. And so this is the bee, and I thought it would be really fun. It's really soft. It's fun to just sort of feel this. And this reminds me a lot, I grew up back east where there are a lot of hook rugs. So I like the idea of working with yarn and doing stuff, and pretty much the only thing you need to know that I found people had questions about when I was showing it at the stores was how you actually work with your punch. So here I've got it ready to thread, where you get everything you need in this thing, from the pattern to the fabric. This is actually rubber that simulates the wood that makes the frame for you to punch, but you just take this, you pull through, and then we just release the yarn.
So you get the threader, you get the tool, you get everything.
You get the whole 9 yards. That thread, that wire is so thin, I tend to keep it in the needle so that I'll do it. But then they say, just start, and you can go either from the top down, which I did on this, because Kim refers to it as a flat stitch, or I can do it the other way, which actually makes loops. And you will see on the back, hopefully, where I did some very neat ones that are all the same height, versus some that were just looser, and I was having fun. But I will sit for this and just show you how simple it is to do this. And Kim does videos on every step of doing these, including some techniques that aren't shown on this. So pretty much I have my fabric. You want to punch through till you get to that hilt, and now I've got that amount of yarn. As I pull back, and I'm going to use my thumb to just hold here since I don't have it in tension, but I go and I do that, and then I go up again, leading with my needle point, and then back down, and then up again.
So you're going to do this in the hoop.
And yeah,
correct.
So I'm doing it in the hoop, and so hopefully you'll get to see here, I just created 3 cute little very even loops, but on this side I have created what's on the other side, and I can actually pull that middle one tight a little bit, but it's just going to go ahead and make the stitches that look like this, and you just go in random directions. I sort of did things like my legs there, and then I followed around right next to them, and then I went random as far as the direction of the stitches. She teaches you how to do this stitch, which goes for the petals of the flower, and how to do the little knot. But I have enough yarn left in here that I could easily do some other fun projects and try things. And I've thought how fun it would be to do a sunflower where the center, which is so dense with all those seeds, to do that with the loops up and then trim them so that it just looks really neat and damp. Dense, not damp. So anyway, so that's that. And then last but not least, one of my favorite things that we picked, and I would have been more optimistic. I was extremely optimistic about the fact that maybe we could even make 2 in the 2 weeks that we had the pattern, but that turned out to not be particularly realistic. But this is a wonderful pattern. It's called the Brittany vest, and this is the cover, which shows option 3, and these are the 3 different options, and I'm going to show you 2 different samples, one that's partly done, but this is option A, and option A uses linen and a fabric, and you're doing half square triangles. So the only thing that's challenging about doing this pattern is the fact that it takes time to do those half square triangles. And I had thought I could do them a whole lot quicker, but one of the lessons and one of the reasons we brought in Best Press was because linen loves to get out of square. So as we're working, I feel like I could have practically poured this bottle over my linen, and I would have been happy to let it dry, because it made it a whole lot easier to get these squares right so that all the points matched. One of the things to see here is the pockets are designed to line up with their respective fabric, and so I just think it's really cool. And this vest is a mix of option A and option C, in that it has a collar here and it has the zipper. So those are the biggies there. It gives you good enough measurements. One of the things I laughed was on my first pair of pants, somebody asked me, so is it true to size? How do I know what size I want? The measurements on this are very good, and the way I know that is because I took my Swedish tracing paper, I made my vest, and then I put it on and I looked at it. I did add an extra row of squares at the bottom so that it would be a little deeper back there. But it really was true to size, where other times I'm like, I don't know because I haven't sewed enough. But these guys really made my life very simple. But anyway, so that's the option A stitching. I didn't particularly care for that neckline, and so I went for option B, and I don't think this picture does it justice, but I'm going to show you the back of mine, and I purposely didn't finish it because we had 2 weeks before I started going to stores, and as I was discovering it took time, I didn't want to do it so fast that I had mistakes and I wasn't going to like it. So this is the back of my vest. And, you know, to me, I just think the colors are really fun.
Yeah.
But I'm not a good enough quilter that I really needed to draw out my lines to go ahead and do that quilting. And so I decided I'd prefer to basically go slow and love it when it was done, rather than hustle and not have it turn out right. So other than, you know, just being a little more time consuming. And so then what I have to show you, I am going to make another, and I fell in love with option C, which of course was the most challenging. But here, what you need to know is the collar and the back both have that star there, and the collar all have little 1-inch squares. So again, as I was looking at things being a time crunch to get them done to show everybody, I found myself thinking, you know, this is a bit challenging, and so I was ready. And on this one, we skipped putting the 1-inch squares, and honestly, I don't think it added anything special, or that it lacks anything not having it.
No, I like this.
So
Definitely. And do you want to show the back of that?
I would love to show the back now. So here is the back, and the same idea where it's just splitting out on those from the center.
Very nice.
So hopefully you can see it. And then we have two last things to mention, one of which, as I said, I was finding myself on a bit of a time crunch as I was doing all this stuff, and I wanted to see my friends that came with their camper and, you know, wanted to visit. So I took my stuff camping, and this actually, even before I was carrying the Caterpillar Glow, this is the greatest storage bag. But it's designed to fit the Caterpillar Glow, that tempered glass fits, and I can even fit the fold-up Caterpillar mat that goes huge, and it fits perfectly in here. So this has become kind of my go-to, you know, nice foam padding here, and a pocket out here where I keep my charger for when the glow needs to be charged. But just a super bag, and for, I believe it's about $40. I couldn't make something this nice.
Yeah,
so
that's very
anyway, it's my favorite. And would you like me to talk about? Okay, so Andrea found us sponge. And you'll notice, I mean, he's named. I'm a big believer that if there was Christmas in July, there should be Christmas in August. And while Sponge doesn't look very exciting out of the box, I need you to know that Sponge is a very hard worker. He did not get any of the Scrub Daddy color or anything, but he truly is awesome, and one of his greatest strengths is that he will pick up dog and cat hair off your furniture, out of your sewing room, and you just basically have to wipe, and then you'll have the stuff on the surface, and you can just pick it up. You can rinse him, but he's really an all-around good guy. I mean, given that he comes with a box that gives him eyes and a bow tie, you gotta know he's good. So I would suggest if you gift him that he absolutely come in a box. He even has, you know, a little bubble of chit-chat on the back and some demos of how he works. But anyway, for under $5, I thought he was a great little stocking stuffer, so I didn't want to miss talking about sponge.
Of course not.
So,
All right.
with that, I think we covered all our different products from the month.
Yeah, I think we might have another gift.
We have another winner.
Yes.
Oh, and I don't know that we ever looked at the braided pack it up and stuff, but anyway, just really quickly, so that we don't, this is from the braid book, you know, doing a table runner or these pack it up bags. They're just super fun and easy.
So the question is the glow. So the glow is, for anybody that came in late, and that light table cutting mat, glass for ironing, all sorts of different things. But we do have different strengths of the light, so you can have it dim or bright, and it goes in the bag, but it also is the cordless.
Yep.
So you can take it with you and have a light table anytime you need. And it really does help for tracing patterns and anytime you need light from underneath.
Yeah.
So it's a great product.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's scoot in here.
Yep.
And I actually heard that somebody uses it to do their diamond dots,
I do.
because you can see
Yes.
those little tiny spots that you need to put your diamond dots. So any kind of crafting, it's really, really awesome.
Yep.
So anyway, thank you everyone for joining us today here at Quality Sewing and Vacuum on our virtual Sew Fun for August. Iola, thank you, and Gail, you've been a joy to have on here. As our last winner, the first one was from Facebook, and this winner is from YouTube. Thank you all for tuning in. This winner is for Toby Bishop. If you would... Yeah,
Yes.
hey Toby! This is also another juicy watermelon, the same pattern. We're giving out both the same pattern to get you ready for next year's summertime. So if you would shoot me your information on Andrea@qualitysewing.com, where the best location is for me to send this to you, that would be so wonderful. And just a reminder that all the products that you saw today are on sale when you put in the code August20. Just the whole word August 20. Is the A capitalized, Chris? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just put in August 20 and you'll get your 20% discount on all the products. And they will be up until September 11th. After that, we're going to take them down from the website. But thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to see you at the end of September on the 25th on our virtual Sew Fun Live. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.